Alexandra Corey, and I'm part of the team here at the Florentine. Hi, Mary. Thanks for joining us. So tonight we're here with Filippo Bartolotta. Thank you, Filippo. And we're going to get started.
Thank you.
Talking with him in just a moment. First, a few practical things. So as a number of you already know, TF Together is our brand new daily moment to meet up, share activities and interests. So we're happy to be using GoToMeetings for these events, and we have to thank their kind tech people for sponsoring this series of events in recognition of its importance to the community. And of course, these events are free, but we do accept contributions for our work at theflorentine.net/support. And one other important matter before we get started, I have to tell you that these events are being recorded. So the video will be uploaded to our social media. If you don't want your face to be recorded, simply turn off your webcam. So Filippo, you are many things, many things. How do you define yourself?
That's a good point. You should ask my daughter. She struggles to. She says that I drink wine. That's my job.
That's good. Okay. We're also a small business owner, though.
Yeah. So I'm a wine educator and a wine critic. And then 20 years ago, I started off organizing some wine tours in Tuscany. And later on in 2004, Le Baccanti became a travel agency with Vanessa Held, my partner. We developed this incoming travel agency. Now there's 12 families working in that business. And of course, it's really tough right now because no one is traveling. And then we have 6 years ago, as a matter of fact, exactly 6 years ago, we created a cooking school and a wine school called Mama Florence in the heart of town. So then I do a lot of now a lot of education, wine education for sommelier, journalists, consumers, anything wine and travel.
Excellent. And so we were chatting the other day, and we said how we've noticed that a lot of people have been kind of joking about drinking a lot during this lockdown. What do you think of that? What have you heard?
I hear there's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of jokes going around of people just getting hammered and finishing their stash of wine, and they're begging me to do something about it and stuff like that. But the truth is that, you know, like wine is alcoholic, so we just got to be sure that we don't abuse of it. And to be honest, a lot of people that are alone at home right now, like they don't have a companion or a family to share. Some of them said like they feel awkward, you know, drinking by themselves. They don't want to be like feeling like alcoholics. And I just want to say, don't feel like it. Like most wines, even if you crack a bottle open right now, they'll keep for a week, unless it's summertime and the wine is like in 40 degrees weather. The majority of wines will be okay. You know, like if you have a glass a day, a glass or two a day, possibly during meals, it's better because your tummy is full, and so alcohol you don't absorb as much. At the end of the day, that's gonna be what, 3 days. So in a bottle of wine, there is 6 glasses, more or less. So crack open the bottle, don't feel ashamed about it, and put the cork back in. Eventually you can use the fridge. The wine always keeps a little bit longer in the fridge, but if you have a big red with a lot of tannins, then you might not want to do that, because otherwise when you get it off the fridge, the tannins will be like when you have a cup of tea. You know, you make it, you put your tea bag, you go for your shower, you come back, and you go like this. So tannins become too puckering if the wine is too cold.
Right. So reds not in the fridge, keep them out, but you can use one of those special, I don't know,
Air
what do you
pumps.
call those things? There you go. If you have one of those, so don't just put in the same old cork, right? But that'll work.
Cork will do.
Yeah. Okay. So we encourage all of you to drink alone or to drink with us, and I guess that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do today.
Next.
So yeah, so we're gonna do next. What are you drinking tonight? What are you gonna open for us?
So I've been in this sweet. I'm on a sweet mode. I'm on a sweet mode because I've been First of all, because Vinsantos or Marsala, for instance, these are wines that are produced in a oxidative way. So when the winemakers makes this wine, the barrels are not topped up. So in other words, once the juice gets into the wooden barrel, then the aging process goes on for years, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 50 years of aging for the Marsala. I was in Marsala, 3 weeks ago before lockdown, and I had 1939, 1941 Marsala just straight from the barrel. And of course, that was an incredible experience with the Florio that started off everything. But when you open a bottle like this, these wines can be open for months. So, and the other thing is they are sweet, but with a little bit of some salty bites. It's like a sherry in a way. So the reason why I love these sweet, non-sweet wines is because there is always every moment of the day is a good day to have a sip with these kind of wines, because they're like very complete. So you have a little bit of that voluminous, voluptuous sweetness, roundness on the mouth, but at the same time you have this acidity that cuts through the palate and it kind of becomes a refreshing product to drink. And it's perfect if you want to have a snack, like the little piece of dry cheese, sweet and salty food is just like perfect combination. And the aromas of these wines are just like a total, it's a journey. It's a journey that goes from the dry apricots, the dry figs, and then you have the leather, the tobacco, balsamic elements. So there is so much going on there that when you close your eyes, you put your nose into it, your mind just flies away off, out of the house for a moment.
That's awesome. So you've got a Vinsanto, so that has to be Tuscan, right?
Sì, Vinsanto, in a lot of different regions of Italy, Vinsanto is produced. Vinsanto means the holy wine. There's lots of origins to describe Vinsanto, whether it's the vino from Xanthos, which was an island in Greece where they were making a sweet wine like this, or maybe it's because the grapes that are aging, they're drying on the wooden shelves for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, anything before the so-called Holy Week. That's why the wine might be called Vinsanto. In any reason, Vinsanto comes from different appellations. This is Vinsanto del Chianti Classico between Florence and Siena. It's a 2004 vintage. So that's what, this is Castello di Cacchiano. We're not doing advertisement because you know what? The other thing, the reason why I chose this is because these guys make like 800 bottles. So it's really a wine of the hospitality. How do you open a bottle of wine? You said at the beginning. Well, this is the waiter's friend in England. They call it the waiter's friend. I think it's a beautiful name because really this has been, like an awesome friend for the past 20 years for me, because there are different tira bouchon, apri bottiglie, but this one is perfect. You just want to put the screw right in the middle of the cork, and you start doing that. You go down, not all the way. So in other words, you don't want to go farther than that because you don't want the edge of the cork just to reach over the cork, and so that you're not going to have any sediments in the wine. Then you have the first leverage, you do like that, and then you have another dent in here, and so you go like this. And here at this point, you want to be cautious. Above all, if you open, this is 16 years old. So at this point, you just move it like that, okay? There we go. You might have seen some doing this. This is something that we usually do to understand whether the wine is corked or not, but to be honest, taste is always the final answer to understand whether the wine is in good or bad shape. Then we clean that one, just on the safe side. Of course, I wash my hands before doing this. Now, what we're gonna do now is this, like I've got different glasses, right? Which one do you think is the Vinsanto glass?
All right, well, let's see everybody's glasses.
Okay.
So everyone who's got a camera on, let's see their glasses. We'll click
So in general
check here.
terms, okay, so I see Helen and they've got like a classic tulip-shaped glass. That's perfect to drink anything, sweet, bubbly, red, white. Why is that glass one of the best? Is because when you put the wine at this point, you have a lot of oxygen that is releasing aroma of the wine, but then you have the tulip shape that is gonna retain some of the aromas in the cup. Okay, Colette, I see that glass is a little bit more difficult to retain the aromas. So if you have an aromatic wine, sorry?
It's vintage.
Okay, so it's beautiful. I like that glass. It's a very 1950s, but tasting glass, you want to have a tulip shape. Now, usually for dessert wine, a lot of people are using, ciao Mari, a lot of people are using the tiny glasses. I don't like it because neither I like the flute. You know, putting the nose in there, like there is no oxygen, there is no pleasure. So you get the bottle, never grab the bottle by the neck, because that's like really, really bad. Like these people, just you do that and then you go like this. Oh my God, do you see the color already? Check it out, man. Now, what are you noticing maybe is how slow this wine is moving around the cup. You see what I'm saying? Like the kinetic action, if I had a glass of water, I can go grab one now, it will be much faster. Instead here, I really need to make a point on having the wine moving. This is telling me that the wine has got a lot of sugar residual. The higher the sugar content and the slower the wine goes around the glass, okay? What else are we here to see? Look at this color, it's so beautiful. We'll look at the legs, all right? So the legs are a sign of the alcohol content. The higher is the alcohol, the more legs you're gonna be able to see around the glass. You know what I'm saying? Like these little tears that they drop down. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm talking, there you go. Right, that's the alcohol or the sugar content. The higher the alcohol, the more of these legs you're going to be able to see around the glass. The other thing about the sense of sight is regarding the transparency. So you want a white background, okay? On a white background, the wine shows its color. The darker is a white wine, the older the wine is going to be. The lighter is a red, and the older the wine. So red wines lose color as they age, white wine gain color as they age. Last thing about the sight of wine is about the acidity. The brighter is the color, and the more acidic you're gonna expect the wine to be. So this is when we taste wine, you want to split in three phases: sight, nose, mouth. So right now we've done the sense of sight. Any questions? Alex? Oh my God, the nose.
I think you're onto the nose now.
Yeah, so whether you're having a white, a bubbly, or a red, it doesn't matter, or dessert wine, the tasting steps that you want to follow are exactly the same. So the sight will tell you how old the wine is, how alcoholic it is, how acidic the wine is. Step two is the nose. The nose of wine, the aromas of wine come from mainly the grape variety, the fermentation process, and the aging process. The grape variety is like talking about different flowers. So if you grab a rose or a jasmine, they smell differently, right? So if you have a Sangiovese or a Nebbiolo, a Cabernet or a Merlot, it's like picking different flowers. If you go in September in harvest time and you crush these grapes, they would look differently, they smell differently, they taste differently. So the basic aromatical compounds of any wine are given by the variety. Cabernet Sauvignon is known to be the big, bold Schwarzenegger style wine. Merlot is more mellow. Pinot Noir is the wine, the more intellectual style wines. And then you have again, it's gone goes with the whites. Chardonnay is a big, fattery, curvaceous one, and Sauvignon Blanc is the Japanese katana, you know, very refreshing, and that would wake up, you know, like would wake up anyone. And then you have Riesling, once again, which is more once again, more intellectual wine. In Italy, there is over 400 varieties, so it's a nightmare and is a paradise at the same time. The second part of the flavors and aromas of wine come from the fermentation. So what is wine? Wine is the result of the sugars that are up here. In 2 weeks, some microorganisms that are naturally present on the skin of the grapes, they will eat those sugars, and in 2 weeks, the sugars go down, the alcohol goes up, and now there is no sugar and alcohol there. The fermentation process is when the wine becomes wine. It's when the aromas of wine come across. It's when the flavors of wine will become more complex. And then you have the aging process. Are you aging the wine in a big barrel as this room, or in a small French barrique? Like, in other words, are you using an oak barrel that is like where there is 20,000 bottles or 300 bottles? The smaller the barrel, the faster the aging process. The bigger the barrel, the longer the aging process is going to take, because there is less oxygen getting in the wine. The relationship between oxygen and its absence is the key of the secret of winemaking. So during that aging process is when the wine would get the tertiary aromas. When we talk about the balsamic elements, usually the leather, what people sometimes, some would say underbrush, you know, and or you have some like more floral aromas, or some saffron and wax, balsamic elements. They come from the age. This is 16 years old, so right now there's no point telling you too much because you don't have it with me, but if you were here, you will be floating in a pool of honeysuckle, bee wax. The top of the creme caramel is here. Some orange zest. It's so beautiful. It's like being in Christmas despite the weather. And there is this undertone notes of licorice, and you know, like when we were kids and we were like the crystal ball. That's weird presence of crystal ball. Last stage of wine tasting, you get a generous sip of wine into your mouth. You draw some air. Normally, I have speak buckets, because when we taste wines professionally, we can do up to 100 wines in a row. And so if you don't have a spit bucket, then you're going to end up horizontal every day, and that you don't want that to happen. But now that I do not have a spit bucket and I'm stranded at home with you guys tasting wine, I might as well drink it. And so how do you want to do it professionally? You get a generous sip of wine into your palate, you draw some air, and this is what we do. So it's a gentle, it's like if you tilt your head like this, you allow some oxygen through, and you're just going to be gentle about it, and that's going to be enhancing the character of wine. So Alex, right now we have a bunch of Psalms. I don't know how many people are watching us, but this is basically 3 years of Psalm class in 5 minutes.
That was pretty short. There's a lot of details there. We have more than 30 people watching us. Only this small group with their webcams on. Hi Linda. Hi Steve. I see that not everybody is here in Florence. This is exciting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in there. Actually, I would have liked to actually do a little bit of tasting together. And since we're not that many people, maybe we could actually share kind of what we're drinking and what we could get out of it. One of the things you were talking about was that whole range of scents that you've got in the glass, and you cheated because you've got a sample. I wish I thought of that. So I'm drinking Castle. Castle
Okay.
doesn't have a great reputation because it's often kind of really simple. But this one is from Canelli. It's by Corpo. I visited them recently in the Piemonte area, and they have these UNESCO Heritage Underground cellars.
Beautiful. I love it.
Fantastic. So we really like this, and I chose it actually because it's only got 5% alcohol, so still have some work to do. So I think it's a good place to, and it's kind of sweet. It's kind of like, it's like drinking a whole peach just sort of squished into your wine glass, even though there's no peach in here. It's like a Bellini without the actual peach juice.
Yeah, that's the Vinsanto, the Moscato di Canelli. That one is so-called Tappo Raso, right? Because there is the Moscato, there is like a sparkling wine that is slightly fizzy. And the way they do that is basically once the fermentation starts, instead of letting the sugars be totally eaten by the yeast, at one point, I would say at this point, so when you have 5 degrees in alcohol, what they do, they use like a wet blanket. They put a blanket on top of the wine, they cool the temperature down, and the yeast basically are unable to eat. They just go like this, they hibernate, they froze. Then they filter, they take the yeast out, and at that point, what you got is a naturally sweet wine, clearly with very low alcohol content presence. And so it's all about that, as you were mentioning, like the pineapple, the peach, and but the beauty about Moscato is also the acidity that is there. So it's not a flabby dessert wine, and I love that with the nice lemon meringue pie.
That sounds good. Actually, could really picture like a soft cheese as well. I think would go nicely with that. We have in the comments, we have Teresa. She's in Germany. Thank you for coming from Germany and is drinking Sangiovese. So we're hoping that's Tuscan. What does anybody else got? If you want to write in the chat or let us know. I'm curious what Mary, I hope, has Chianti Classico. We have Mary Shi from chat.
Mary non ce l'ha, cosa non lo vuol dire? She's got something else instead.
This is a Bamfi.
I feel like a punk because I am drinking my husband's wine, and the reason is because we just got back yesterday, and it was the only bottle that we had, like, kind of readily available in our apartment. But we were too tired to finish the whole thing, so we did what Filippo had recommended. We put a cork in it, and I'm drinking the remaining half, and it is our Say Gran Selezione, which actually I think a few people here, I think Alexandra have had it and Filippo have had it. So I'm drinking a Sangiovese based Chianti Classico.
Show us the bottle. There you go. Get a close up there. There we go.
What is it like? Is it the 16 vintage?
It is the 16. Yep. Let's see.
Fantastic vintage. So 16 in Chianti Classico. And actually, I liked. I think that is so far. We just do a live. This is live. We do what we want, right? Like I think it's Querceto di Castellina best effort so far. I enjoyed that 2016. I loved it. I think in Chianti Classico, it's not because you're here, but I think 2016 was a vintage in Chianti Classico where a lot of winemakers managed to come across with something that, in a few words, was elegant, it was juicy, and very clean in the fruit. So I think it's like a very transparent color red wines with not, the oak presence was very subdued, so where it was more about the fruit and about the acidity. So 16 for me is one of those vintages that is fantastic to enjoy now, but I will place a few bets on this vintage just to keep a case. When you buy wines, if there is value, just buy an extra case, just put it somewhere, hide it somewhere where you forget about it, and then you crack it open in 6 or 8 years, and you'll see what happens. The wines would usually mellow out, they deliver more aromatics, and it's just another experience.
We actually have in the comments Tandy, who's in Florence, and had to really break it down to necessity. So her grocery shopping, she says, had to focus on what she really needed, but she loves Italian wine. She loves Filippo's descriptions. and she's currently drinking tea, which of course has one big thing in common with red wine.
Totally. Tannins. So the antioxidants, some people have been actually abusing, I think, in the communication. The big elephant is in the room. We're talking about the virus. Someone said wrongly that tannins are natural antibiotics and antioxidants. They are, but they're not going to cure any disease. So wine is just a pleasant commodity to keep at home, but it's not going to help anyone with regards to the virus. So I read like some really discomforting press release with regards to the fact that wine could be helpful against the virus, and of course that is total crap. Like doctors, there is no doctors that would say that. But going back on the positive side, tannins are antioxidants that would have the wine age for a long period of time. Very often I crack open bottles, as I mentioned, of the 40s, the 50s, and 60s, and how the heck does a food product survive for such a long time? Tannins is like one of the answers. Acidity is another answer. So the pH and the grams of acidity that are present in the wine would actually help this product to have a longer shelf life than most products human beings ever invented. As a matter of fact, there's a beautiful story of the Brits. When the convicts were sent to Australia, the majority of these people were kicking the bucket on the way to Australia. And some doctors found out that people that survived that trip were the convicts that were drinking a lot of wine during that trip. And they found out later on that actually wine was the perfect cure against scurvy or other disease, because there is less bacteria and less, shall we say, bacterial spoilage going on because of alcohol and pH. Today, interesting enough, 50% of the Australian winemakers' families have a doctor background in their family tree. But that's as far as a curative wine can be. I think one of the best things about wine is the soul. If you drink a good enough amount, it warms you up, and above all, it'd be great to share it with friends. Damn it.
Well, we're doing what we can. In fact, one of the things I wanted to do next week, I'd like to make this Wine Wednesday. It's an old hashtag, and I think we should have Wine Wednesday calls like this. I think it would be really fun to share what everybody's drinking. So maybe I encourage everyone here to join us again next week, and maybe we'll even have more people. It'll be a big casino, and everyone should bring a bottle that's kind of fun and different and present what they're drinking. Because certainly one of the interesting things is the stories about winemakers and the stories behind them. We have a couple of comments from Paige, who is at work in Texas. So awesome. Currently not drinking because at work and it's noon. We're earlier, I guess. And to Elena, who is also in New York, drinking Valpolicella Classico from Villa San Carlo. So thank you for
I know them. Villa San Carlo, they're super sweet people. They have these incredible vineyard that is just like from Verona. You just take east and you drive up the hill, and all of a sudden you enter a gate and you just like drive 3 kilometers in the forest all the way up the mountain till you meet this incredible pergola. So like the pergola train system, and this is a young winery, and I think they're becoming better and better. Their Valpolicella and their Ripasso and Amarone are really something to look for, because also incredible value for money.
That's good to know. So we can, and apparently you can also get it in New York.
In the US.
And we also have Eden from Istanbul, but from Florence. No, not actually. She says, no, just kidding. I feel like that. Unfortunately, not drinking white now, but does Campari count? You know, well, why not?
Well, yeah, no, of course. I mean, there's different way. Like when it comes to the tasting, we do the same. Like whatever you are given as a professional taster, whether it's a grappa, there is different techniques that apply to spirits. But when you assess the quality of a drink, the idea is that there is always an objective moment. So in other words, we should all be agreeing on the fact whether or not a wine is sweet or dry, whether it's astringent or mellow, right? So when you assess a wine, the first moment is about closing your eyes. Don't listen to anyone else, because usually people, if the moment they say something, your experience goes to pause. Because if you are putting your nose here and I'm saying lemons, then all of a sudden your brain is gonna see lemons all over, and you smelling lemons. This is how the sense of smell works. Like if I say something, then you see that, and then you go in there, and unless you're totally numb, you're gonna get that stuff, right? So the tasting experience is a mindful. Actually, what is the opposite of mindfulness? Because your mind has to be empty. Like when you taste, you just dedicate focus, just like forget about anything else. Forget about whatever else you're doing, and you just focus. You look at the color, you enjoy the moment. You see right now, I can see that this golden brown color is having some beautiful, like almost like red garnet hues. Right at the bottom over there is the sunshine going through it. And this is telling me that the wine has got different hues of colors, so that the wine is going to be older than a relatively young wine. When you taste, a lot of people do this, they usually incline their head sideways, they close their eyes, because in doing that, you are allowing you're going into a browsing mode. So you allow your brain to pick up those aromas from the cupboards of the memory brain. And at that point, according to the experience you have, you need to start verbalizing. Do not go into specific aromas. You don't need to do that. But like, what does it remind you of? You can go even into, I don't know, the first time that you light a fire at night with your best friend. Like that's what I'm having here at the moment. Maybe because I'm being kind of like lonely now, and I want to with my best friend and having some sausages and wine. But that's something that focus on what your experience is about. Then you taste the wine. You can get a couple of notes. You can say to yourself, okay, this is a good one. Try to explain the wine to someone that is not human. I might have watched this, I can't remember what movie it was, but like if you were to explain to a Martian, what does an apple taste like? You're not going to say apple. You're just going to say, oh, well, wait a minute. It's a little juicy. My mouth is dribbling. And so that kind of exercise is very, very good for your brain as well. Apparently, wine tasters have got like a longer lifespan because of the use of this brain memory. So it's an exercise that everybody can access to. Of course, you need some training, some sessions, some stuff, but like make it as much as your experience as possible.
That's actually really, really interesting, because I was recently reading about the words that we currently use to describe wine scents and wine flavors. And apparently that this kind of grouping into flowers, fruits, and vegetables, and this rather limited vocabulary comes from the 70s, from a desire to sort of unify the vocabulary, so that if I'm explaining to Jane this wine and I say peach, and she'll understand that, and so we both understand peach, I'm going to go in and try to make it up as if Jane were Martian. So you're telling us something completely different, which is maybe your personal.
Yeah. So there's what you're talking about, like it's very interesting. Like for instance, when I was living in London for the first part of my professional life, it was pretty challenging, because I give you an example, like a Japanese psalm. I don't know, artichokes do not exist in Japan. So if you're talking about the artichokes and how the texture and that kind of like funny metallic astringent feeling that you have when you have artichokes, they'll look at you as if you were a Martian, right? So there are certain things that are they belong to a specific culture, but in general terms, there is always two moments in wine tasting: an objective moment, and I think professionals, there is never a moment when someone says, "Oh my God, this is acid, this very acidic wine," and the other guys go like, "Oh no, this is really mellow." Like if it's acidic, it's acidic. There is objective elements that will tell you that you are going to be dribbling so much when you have a lot of acidity in the wine. To give you an example, when it's sweet, like no one can say that this is not a sweet wine. Here, there might be at least 150, 180 grams per liter. Any regular wine would go up to 2 grams or 4 grams. So objective is something that you write about what you're having, but then it's going to be about your experience. I think this is the beauty of wine, is the fact that everyone can relate to wine. It's like when you read a book, the words are the same for everyone, but everyone is going for their own journey, because the author is just talking to you, and the experience that is awakening while you read, it cannot be the same for everyone, I think.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to think of it. So in order to enhance this experience for everyone in the future, I guess one of the things that a lot of people have trouble with, and I certainly do, is to make sure that I don't know, figure out how to express those scents and even recognize those scents. I mean, sometimes the wine is pretty simple. So here, it's pretty much one thing going on, but how would you recommend people train this olfactory sensation so that they can better express it in the future to their friends?
Well, right now, when I talked about mindfulness, it's kind of funny because in this quarantine, I've done a lot of different kind of sports: yoga, capoeira, wild water canoeing. Like I've done everything, like lots of stuff. But so now I'm retrieving all of the stuff that I've done in the past, and I'm doing some of it. Of course, no, I can't do the canoe, but mindfulness. I think tasting wines. It requires a lot of awareness, unless you just want to get hammered, which is not what wine was conceived for. Like if you want to get hammered, there's different ways of doing it. Like the beauty of wine, of great wines, and look, when I'm talking about fine wines, it's the $5 Moscato Dusty to the $5,000 Old Barolo. It doesn't matter. Like of course, there's different wallets. I belong to the lower end category, but I taste wines for a lot of collectors, and so I crack open bottles that are in the few thousands. But the experience of wines that are conceived in a great terroir is the fact that you can actually have an experience that is not about just downing a drink, because your mind is going to get involved in this experience. And so going back to your training question, right now what you can do, you just can prepare some little a glass, then you put like a tin foil, you just do some holes, and then in it you can throw in parsley, lemon peel, whatever you have available, right? And then you just put something like a little sticker underneath to see what they are. And you can play these with your kids, with your companion, and you're just like, okay, lay them out for me now, and you just go boom, 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 and you'll see how when you train your senses, because nobody is using their sense of smell anymore, like no one. But if you start using it, you'll see all of a sudden how powerful it is. It's phenomenal, and the learning curve goes vertical. So once you've done a wee bit of that, then you just go back into your wine tasting and you try to retrieve some of that experience that you had before. I mean, the only issue is that there is hundreds of aromas. But if you start with a bunch, then I think is a way to open little drawers in your smelling memory, and you become more confident. This is the one thing, Alex. I think people need to be empowered with the fact that their senses are awesome. Like they don't like, you know, I'm trained. I taste 5,000 wines a year. I've been doing that for the bloody past 20 years. So, you know, I'm different. But professionals are different in any field. But, you know, even though I can read wine like an art critic can read a painting, once it comes to something that you gotta, you know, drink yourself, you gotta know what you like at the end of the day, because I can say whatever I want, but if you don't like it, it's just gonna be a bunch of words.
Absolutely. So that I love this idea of creating these little scent jars, flashcards for the scents. And you can do it with kids. Paige was asking, is this to be done blindfolded?
Well, we see when we do blind tasting, yes, blindfolded. That's why I was suggesting the tin foil.
Mm-hmm.
You have to cover the entire jar so you don't know what's in it. Yes, absolutely. If you do not do blindfolded, it doesn't work. Like if I give you a lemon, you go like, what a beautiful lemon. If there is a banana, it's like, oh my God, a beautiful smell of banana. That's the, and you'll be surprised when you do this game. Stuff that is like you just have it like on a daily basis, you're gonna mixing them up. The funniest thing of it all, above all, with the language barrier, Helen, when I was in London, I mean the forest fruit moment was just bonkers. You know, the red currant, the blueberries, the mulberries, and everyone like, oh my God, what's mulberry? Is it the one with the spike? What's this red currant? And everyone has got his own name. And then he comes to the raspberry, right? Italians don't have raspberries, so how the heck do you translate? Not raspberries. Yeah, raspberries. We don't have raspberries.
We have raspberries, lamponi.
Allora no, aspetta, vedi, you see, I'm still like that way. No, cranberries. Cranberries. There's no cranberries in Italy.
Which is a
The other
really big
thing that I suggest you, sorry?
big problem at Thanksgiving.
Yeah. The other thing that I suggest doing is usually the learning curve goes vertical when you have a couple of wine back to back. In other words, if you only have a glass of wine and you go back and forth and usually you feel dumb, you feel like, it smells like wine, right? Instead, when you have two, possibly different, when you go back and forth, all of a sudden it's like if you resetting your nose and say that the wine number one has got the citrus, super zesty character, you go in here and all of a sudden you get the tropical that you didn't get before. So when you go back and forth, and when you taste something that is sharp, crunchy, and acidic, and then you go to the flabby, buttery, sweet wine, all of a sudden it makes sense. You understand flabbiness and you understand crunchiness. Do you see what I'm saying? Like when you have them back to back, your learning curve always goes faster.
Okay, so I think the instructions for next week are pretty clear. We should find all the strange things in our fridge and start selling them in hidden jars.
Mind your husband with the dirty socks.
And you know, I think anything could be sniffed to enhance the skill, so we could do that as well. We need to drink sufficiently stuff to have. Maybe we want to open bottles before we finish one. We'll have another one open so we can try the side-by-side thing. We need to practice. We really need to practice. And no, seriously though, I've been practicing, and it helps. It helps to get used to these things, to try to find ways to talk about wine. That's one of my goals this year, is to find the words that describe them. I think Helen is brilliant at talking about what she's. See, I just don't have the words. So that's what I'm working on. But I would say that's great, and thank you so much, Filippo.
Thank you, guys.
I hope everyone here will join us next week. And Linda and Steve, and then everyone else who we can't see because you don't have your cameras on. But thank you to everyone for showing up on this first TF together, and we'll be back tomorrow night at 5 playing music with Simon Batten and his new album. And Paige says she'd love to have a specific varietal for us to try all together.
Good idea.
We could
Let's
do-
let's find a Wednesday and do it. I like
How
that.
about Sangiovese next Wednesday?
Sangiovese next Wednesday sounds cool. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna come across with a proposal that we're gonna launch for everyone. I think it's a very good idea.
Excellent. I think so too. I think most people, at least those of us here in Tuscany, have some Sangiovese in the house. So that could be a possibility. Super idea. Anyone also who wants to propose any further ideas can reach out to Jane. Her email address is on the schedule and then she is here in video. Her email address is on the schedule at theflr.net/tftogether. And we're going to be updating with more events before the end of the week. So tomorrow we've got music. Friday we've got a little bit of mental health. And Monday we actually have Linda and Steve, or maybe just Steve cooking. He's here on video. So hi guys, and we'll see you here on Monday. But for those of us who can read in Italian, Filippo has written about wine and personality and how different personality types tend to like different kinds of wines. There it is. Is it going to come out ever in English?
Well, we were having a conversation with a publisher in New York last month. You can, I think you can still get it on online, Amazon and the Giunti store. You can find it.
Sounds great. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you, Filippo. I'm going to close this chat and see you tomorrow,
Love
same
you,
time.
Ed.